need to ensure we don't go along with colonial language. Colonial language is very good at keeping us in boxes so that it can best control us. So they decide they're going to call us Gen Z so that they can best control us and control the narrative. We must refuse that. I agree with you. And this is a problem of Kenyans. I know my mother is suffering. When I was in Kenya, I was suffering to put food on the table. My brothers are suffering. My sisters are suffering. The children are suffering. So this is not just a Gen Z issue. The Gen Z, and even when you look at the protests, it wasn't just Gen Z on the streets. So this is something, being someone who's been in the West and seen and worked actually in their governments and seen how they operate, this is something they're very good on and very big on. They make sure they control the narrative, and we must make sure that we don't allow them to do so. Asante.
Thank you.
And maybe Hillary Kidogo, maybe just to echo on the words of Daktari. Daktari, first of all, thank you so much for your contribution. The beauty with you is that you are eloquent enough, even if you putting us into dangerous spaces, we think like we are going into safe places. So your eloquence is something that we are admiring, and it is giving us energy. So easy, we need all the energy that we can get, because the person that we are dealing with, remember, he's most important. And I want to emphasize on this. Remember, the people that voted for this president were brick and mortar. Parliament mmechoma kwa ofisi ya Sakaja, dimple zake zitakaa wapi? CJ ana ofisi. Kumbukeni, this man was voted in by brick and mortar. So tomorrow he will be dealing with robots. So we need all the energy that we can get. Daktari, thank you. Kesho tunatokea. All of us will be there in numbers, 10 million strong. 10 million. Our strength is on the numbers. Our strength is on the disorganization. That is the biggest organization in Africa. Thank you for the brothers that are supporting us from diaspora, from other parts of the continent. Thank you so much. And everyone, please keep the hashtag going. Keep it alive. Like if you can, let's follow each other. Pale pia kwa nini, and there's a post I've put for Latif. Please retweet, like it, so that even when such kind of people get an opportunity to speak to Kenyans, they feel that we are behind them. Ruto should be feeling alone. We need to seclude this person. We need to put him in a corner and put him there forever and ever as Iwai Toka. We are tired, man. So next speaker.
Thank you. Brief go ahead. Maja, see you. Everybody, yep. We have a lot of requests, guys. Go ahead, brief.
Asante sana. Yes, I want to reiterate that point about us creating and sticking to our own narratives, using our own language. We are Africans, we are Kenyans. Let's continue to perpetuate our narratives. Let's go back to our roots in search of everything, including the solutions. Daktari, I love the fact that you point out correctly, very accurately, that this is not a new fight. We have been fighting this fight because in reality, our economy, our systems of government have never worked for us. They've never worked for us Kenyans. We were bequeathed colonial systems that were meant to work for the colonizer. And the only thing that the colonizer did is turn it over to the African elites, Mzungus in black skin, to be the guardians of the spoils of colonialism. I'll just go real quick into Machiavelli's four-point blueprint of how you demoralize and conquer and colonize a people. It's a very thin book, by the way, The Prince by Machiavelli. It's a very thin book. Everybody in here should read it because it shows you who we are dealing with in the form of Ruto. So in the blueprint, it has 4 stages. The first one is you go in with your armies and administrators, and you demoralize the population by violence and aggression. The second stage is you create an elite class. You show them that if they are brutal, if they speak English like you or whatever language like you, and they behave like you, they too can get a taste of the privilege. The third one is 1960s, 1956 Ghana, 1963 Kenya, where you hand over political control to the elite class. And the fourth stage is the most lucrative because after they withdraw their security forces and their administrators, now all they do is collect on the spoils of colonialism using the elite class that they put in place. And that's what we have. We have an elite class that are the custodians, the guardians of colonialism. So Ruto just happens to be the very unfortunate one who is sitting being the custodian. He had a choice. He had a choice not to be the custodian, and we are giving him that choice today. As Kenyans, we are saying, are you going to serve us, or are you going to continue to serve the neoliberal colonialist policies that you have been bequeathed? And again, this is not new. It's been since independence, or so-called independence, quote unquote, because we've never been independent. We are still under colonialism. We are the fourth stage of colonialism. We are not even in neo-colonialism yet. Maybe if we beat this economic colonialism, maybe they will introduce a new colonialism that we can at that point call neo-colonialism. But at this point, we are still in colonialism. So, and Kenyans are very hungry because we've got a glimpse of what it might look like if we actually had a leader who had our interests. I think we all agree, or most of us Kenyans agree, that the Kibaki presidency showed us that we had the capacity to govern ourselves, to govern for Kenya, by Kenyans, with the interests of Kenyans. The fact that within one term, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, within the first term, Kenya was living within our means, living off the proceeds of our taxation, and we were getting services for the taxation. By the way, we must resist Western narratives that try to paint this as purely, quite simply, they reduce it to an anti-tax movement. We are not an anti-tax movement. What we are is an anti-imperialist, anti-neoliberal movement. We are protesting against regressive taxation. What we want is progressive taxation, where the people at the bottom of the economic ladder are not being overly burdened. They are not being overburdened with the burden of taxation. We ensure that the people at the bottom of the economic ladder are looked after, that corporations, especially foreign corporations, especially international organizations, now Kenya. Kenya is now the number one destination of venture capital. And every single venture capitalist firm in Kenya is run by Wazungus, by foreigners, by Americans. They are coming, they are getting the funds. These funds look like they are coming to Kenyans. These same venture capitalists, they are coming, they are stealing the idea of Kenyans. Then they are turning around and bankrupting those companies, cashing out, going to buy properties in Kileleshwa, in Mombasa, in Diani, in Zanzibar. So raising the prices of our homes at the same of our properties at the same time as they are stealing from us. They are stealing our ideas. And by the way, they are stealing our ideas and then killing them, because the only way you can actually cash out is if you bankrupt the company after you've already stolen and patented the ideas. So we have to connect the dots. So William Ruto had a choice to be a leader for Kenya, for Kenyans. He has chosen to be a leader who is here to implement IMF policies that overburden, again, the poor, that protect, in particular, Western, European, and American corporations, but foreign corporations in general, foreigners, at the expense of Kenyans. So he needs to make a choice. He needs to be, and Kenyans are giving all of our leadership this choice. You need to be more afraid of us, and you need to show us that you're more afraid of us, because you need to recognize either ni sisi tumekuweka hapo, we've put you into power, ama ni brick and mortar ambayo imekuweka hapo. If you believe it's brick and mortar, fine, continue serving brick and mortar and serving the interests of the IMF and the World Bank and of BlackRock. This is why the guy who came in preaching bottom up, the very first executive order, he couldn't even wait for legislation. The very first executive order he signed was to privatize our most highly performing parastatals. Why? To hand them over to BlackRock. BlackRock is now very proudly coming to Kenya to invest, or so-called, quote-unquote, invest, to steal. Let's be very accurate. So when our parastatals are privatized, kila kitu imeenda. Starting with, by the way, when we are making sure that Ruto is gone, can we also make sure, even before Ruto, that Devin Day is gone? And by the way, there's a process of removing the president. And I don't know exactly what it is. I will admit that. Daktari, you are the lawyer here. But there is one thing, there is a path that is very clear. We need to first start removing the MPs, his supporters, the ones around him, because we can recall our members of parliament. And I can't believe how easy it is. I'm sure you've all seen that video. There's a website where you go, you start the petition for you only need something apparently very small, like 50,000, I believe, signatures to recall your member of parliament. So we need to start by those, because once we have recalled enough MPs, this guy is weak. He can be impeached. Right now, he cannot be impeached because he has the majority in parliament, even though right now, wanaogopa kutembelewa. So let's start with that process, because that is within reach. Let me yield there and hear from other people. Asanteni sana. Good to see you, Maj. Good to see everybody else. Kumbukeni. Lovely to see you there. And Dr. Miguna, so glad to hear you and so honored to be sharing this space with you. Thank you, Wanjiro, for inviting me. And I'm just so gratified that we're having this conversation.